Well, good afternoon and almost Happy New Year. I'm Kevin Addix with the Maryland Wineries Association, and we have another great show today, another great stream. And I figured with the end of the year coming up and with the year that we've had, we should be talking about bubbles and sparkling wine. And in chatting with Claude Mackey, our wonderful wine ambassador, Claude said, you got to do a show on sparkling wine. You got to talk about bubbles. So we've got an indomitable crew of folks, and I'm going to bring everybody up here and just let's pile on. So we've got Lauren Zimmerman from Port of Leonardtown Winery. In no particular order, we've got Bob White from Robin Hill Farm and Vineyard. We've got Nick Maliska from Windridge Vineyards. We've got Michael Zollo from Crow Farm and Vineyard. And we've got Jacques van der Vyver from Chateau Boudet. So thanks, everybody. We've got this. This is basically one of our expert panels. As I went through the list of all the folks who are making sparkling wine in the state, there's a lot. So I'd love to just go around and hear why sparkling wine. Why do you deal with bubbles? Jacques will go in reverse order. Start with you. Jacques, I think you're muted. There you go.
As I was saying, I guess in a way we're kind of crazy to do it. It can be a complicated process, and it's been quite a learning curve since starting the project in 2015. But it has its place, and it's a beautiful product to produce and just an exceptional thing to drink, and especially age when we do more traditional style, so we can age our styles on the lease for a couple of years and really see that development, everything from 18 months to 5 years, and you can see that development and that change in the sparkling wine.
Is there a reason from a winemaking perspective that a winery might decide to make sparkling wine, or is it just for the sheer joy of it? And we'll talk about the struggle of making it at some point. That should have been in quotes, the sheer joy of it.
I guess it's you can definitely play with obviously topography and terroir will play a major role in it. I think generally it comes down to varietals and be able to really pick at the right time. Having fruit that's able to do that, stuff like Chardonnay, maybe a little more modern towards Albarenos, Pinot Noir, Pinot Blanc. Anything with a nice high acidity you can really work with, and you can produce these sparkling, some form of sparkling wine. So if you have the location that can grow fruit healthy, especially healthy white fruit, and you can retain acidity, you can make a great base wine to then work with to make sparkling.
So it sounds like there might be particular varieties that work well for it. Let's jump to Michael. What has Crow Farm and Vineyard and Winery been focusing on?
So we have two varietals that tend to work really well for us for sparkling. We're growing 8 varietals on the farm. The two that are really good for sparkling for us are the Vidal Blanc, which is a French-American hybrid, and the Barbera, which is a traditional Vitis vinifera. Both of those tend to retain their acidity into their later stages of ripening, and also around that 19-degree brick range that we're looking at for sugars when we're picking earlier. I think Maryland in general is probably really suited well for some sparkling production because our disease pressure tends to happen late in the ripening stages. And when we're picking earlier in the 19 brick range for sparkling, because you want that low alcohol up front, there's less disease pressure. The fruit comes in looking a lot better for your sparkling presses than perhaps for some of your later production.
So it's Crow, it's Vidal and Barbera. So I'm hearing some themes here about early ripening, specific varieties, good acid. Again, in no particular order, Lauren, what happens down at Port of Leonardtown? So you're doing something completely different with bubbles. And I think you're still on mute. Coming to us live from the production area.
Yeah, we're hustling and bustling here at part of Leonardtown Winery. You can see behind me we're full tilt, getting ready for bottling. But yeah, we went a little bit of a less traditional way with our sparkling, and we did a canned product, which is our lovely rolling rosé, which is made with our Chamberson grapes. So it's kind of a fun product. It is very fruit forward, you know, strawberry, melon, lots of delicious flavors. It's fun, you know, it's more casual, especially because it's in a can, obviously. It's more easy access. It's easier to, you know, take around for boating, biking, hiking, all that fun stuff that us Marylanders love to do. And it is just lightly bubbly. So this isn't full on, you know, sparkling champagne kind of style. It's more of a faisante kind of style. So less bubbles, but it gets the spritziness and the refreshing flavor that makes it so fun. And we actually do a lot of cocktails with this wine, which also makes it fun for, you know, millennials and people who are out there wanting to experiment a little bit more with their wines. And we did a really fun cocktail experiment with, we did I'm trying to remember them now, lemonade with gin and rosemary simple syrup. It was my all-time favorite. And then adding a splash of the sparkling rosé. And it was absolutely delicious and great for patio season and just enjoying on the patio. But this wine is, like I said, just lightly carbonated. So it was actually carbonated during the canning process. So it's like a forced carbonation method as opposed to secondary fermentation in the bottle, which is more the traditional method.
Lauren, we've got a question here from Shelby just asking how the cans have been selling. Has that been a popular mode?
Oh, you're breaking up a little bit.
Hey, sorry, just asking how the cans have been selling.
Oh yeah, they absolutely flew off the shelf. They sold out within a couple months. We did 2 different cans. We also did a apple wine in a can, and it had a little bit of a spritz to it as well, and it kind of catered to the cider drinkers out there, which there's a lot of. So that one, yeah, it was within a few months, it just flew off the shelf. But we produced close to 3,000 cans of each wine. So it was a small run, but it was our first, you know, canning experience. So we wanted to keep it small, and it definitely is something that we want to do again because the response was so positive.
So, and I've had it and it's wonderful. I think it's interesting to know that there are multiple ways to sparkle wines. So talking about forced carbonation, that's one interesting way of doing it. You know, the traditional method champenois is what I think many of the producers are using, which is, we'll get into that, but it's tedious. Before we get to that, Nick, tell us what's happening at Windridge with bubbles.
Thanks, Kevin. So we're doing kind of a few different things. We've got some traditional method sparkling that hasn't been disgorged yet, but we'll be releasing next year. But we've been doing a little more frequently now the forced carbonation, kind of like Lauren's doing, but to a higher pressure. So it's more like a traditional sparkling with bubbles, and it's in bottle with crown or cork and cage rather. And we do a rosé, sparkling rosé made from Chamberson as well. It's great acidity, great strawberry notes, as Lauren said. And then we're also doing using another hybrid, Chardonnay, to make a white sparkling. And they've been flying off the shelves. People are loving the bubbles, that's for sure.
Do you find that there is a bubble season?
Honestly, no. It's been nonstop. We thought it would die down in the fall, but it just picked right up for the holidays. So we'll see if it tapers off in winter, but it's been a consistent seller for us.
So I had decided going into 2020, before we knew what was in store, that 2020 would be the year of bubbles for me, that I was just going to open every sparkling wine that I could get my hands on and just enjoy it. And now that we've been through what we've been through, 2021 will also be a year of bubbles as well. So hold on to some bottles of those for me. Bob, you are new to the sparkling game. Well, new at Robin Hill, right? You've got a history of making wine and playing around with bubbles, but tell us what you're doing there.
We're doing a traditional method. We had the wine cellar, actually the old stripping room in the tobacco barns that worked out perfect for for laying up our sparkling wine. I acquired the old riddling racks from Ray Brasfield at Cygnus. So I have some legacy behind our sparkling program as well, along with his knowledge. And I want to thank Michael over at Crow. He helped me a lot in the beginning, with just some theory and processes. So we are using Vidal Blanc and Chamberson blend, free run Chamberson at press, and it's done real well. We're very happy with it. And we're looking forward to this year, trying something different. This year, we're doing a Cab Franc bubbly. I got the cuvee going right now from the free run at Crush. The Cab Francs just came in so light that I thought, what the heck? And the cuvées are tasting great, so I'm getting ready to triage here pretty soon and get that in the cellar. So I'm excited about the next round of bubbly for us.
Love it. So and Bob, I took yours to North Carolina with me, and it was the single best thing that I drank that week. So thank you very much over the summer. Just to open it up, and I've got just kind of a reiteration from Mr. Claude Mackey himself. This is indeed the year of sparkling. Tell me just open up here. When should you drink sparkling? I'm not talking about like occasion, but does it pair with certain things? I think we're past the only on special occasions, or at least I'm past only drinking it on special occasions. Where does it fit in?
Thirst.
Okay.
Yep. When you have some thirst, have some bubbly, it'll quench it. We find a lot of people buy it for special occasions. They come to the winery to celebrate an event, and that's when it really moves. There are those who prefer bubbly over other wines, but for the most occasions, it's special occasions. People are willing to lay out the money for a bottle of bubbly, and doing traditional method. It tends to cost a little more because it's very labor intensive. So the folks that come out to buy it are serious and they enjoy it, and it's usually not one bottle either. That's
good. Any other thoughts on where it fits in to the wine drinking schedule?
I would say we typically make Blanc de Blanc and a Blanc de Noir, but what I find with Blanc de Blanc is any kind of light seafood, shellfish, oysters, clam, raw clams in the shell, light white fish. You really can't go wrong. I think the beauty of it is because you have the acidity, anything that has any form of kind of fatty texture, it can work with because it can just cut straight through it. So if you want to go as crazy as having it with a porterhouse steak, why not? It's not gonna hurt it. So, but I would say normally some kind of shellfish or light white fish.
Yeah, it also works well in the aperitif kind of setup with any appetizers that you're doing, any hard or softer cheeses where, again, that fatty component is there, and it works really well to clean the palate and keep it fresh. Like Bob said, it's very refreshing for sure because of that sparkling aspect to it. So, and the acidity keeps it crisp. So summers are beautiful, and obviously during the winter when we need to celebrate through the holidays, it's wonderful for that as well.
And just when someone mentions cheese, we've got this promo from Diane Miller. don't forget local cheese. Obviously, don't forget local cheese. But I think, Jacques, to your point, it's really good at kind of cutting the fat and oil, and it's great as an aperitif. But just in general, it can go with food. I tend to drink mine without food, just deciding it's time to have some wine.
Nothing wrong with that.
Other thoughts on where or when?
I absolutely agree with everyone that you don't have to wait for a special occasion. And I think you can celebrate Monday or Tuesday night after work and just pop a bottle. And I'm kind of with you, Kevin. I don't necessarily eat a lot when I'm drinking champagne or sparkling. When I'm at a restaurant, I like to order maybe a glass of sparkling right to start off as like a palate cleanser, and just while I'm trying to decide on what to have as a meal. But yeah, sparkling is great anytime. And we can't forget in the morning, of course, with mimosas. Now, you don't necessarily want to use your best champagne for this, but adding a splash of OJ orange juice into your sparkling wine makes it for a good excuse to, for a morning glass.
Totally.
Yes.
Speaking of mixers, Lauren, you've become kind of the champion of mixing wine with other cocktails and other things like that. I've seen Big Cork do the same kind of thing. So I was a little bit inspired over the last couple of weeks, and we've got some amazing fruit wines and cordials being produced in the state. And so just adding a slight touch of that to the bubbly completely changes it. And so you get, you got to start with a great, good wine to have as a base, and just adding a little splash of it. It's pretty and it's a lot of fun. Talk to me about glassware. Does it matter?
Well, I think obviously the more modern way is the longer flute. I still prefer a stemmed flute. Some people do have stemless flutes, but it is what it is. But at the same time, I think when you're playing around with making cocktails, if I'm playing with a cocktail for sparkling, I'm either doing a 76 or a 75, and I like to do those in the kind of the old what do you want to call those? The old like 1920s, the kind of the short stem, short body ones. Just change it up kind of thing. So yeah.
Other thoughts on glassware?
You definitely want to have a better glassware. I mean, we use a general at the winery, but if you're at home and you're going to have a nice glass, you want to have the glassware that will release the bubbles. Your cheaper wine glasses they're very smooth, or flutes, are very smooth on the inside. You don't get the bubble release. I've actually taken some of the wine glasses or the flutes at the winery and just rough the very bottom. Take a green pad and scratch the inside so the bubbles can release. So it's not looking like you just poured a fizzy glass of still wine, that the bubbles will continue to release, because they need something to grab to, where the finer champagne flutes will do that. They're designed that way, where your less expensive ones, I'll say, are they're just cast glass, and they don't give you that fine. That little fine bubble that we like to see coming out. So
recently in a restaurant setting, I shouldn't say recently, it was like a year ago, but I ordered sparkling wine from a sommelier that I knew, and he said, "You have a preference on glassware?" And I looked at him a little perplexed, and I said, "Well, what would you serve it in?" And he came back essentially with a Riedel Chardonnay glass, a bigger bowl glass, rather than your traditional flute, which is what I would have assumed. And he brought a flute too. And I love playing the glass game of figuring out how things taste. It tasted to me better because it was more open. If you're talking about how wines open up, and a Bordeaux glass, you need a bowl. You don't have much of that in a flute. So, he kind of described to me, and I don't know if this is training or his gut, but he said, this is for show. The most compelling aspect of sparkling wine generally are the bubbles. And so you get most bang for your buck of seeing the bubbles in a flute. If you want to truly let the wine evolve and taste it, treat it like any other wine and put it in a larger bowl glass. So I've been doing that when I am not drinking wine with a crowd, drinking sparkling wine with a crowd, which I'll do in this. I'm now usually drinking it in a standard Bordeaux or Burgundy glass or something like that.
Yeah, it will certainly get more air that way. That's one of the benefits of the Champagne Coupe versus the Champagne Flute. And certainly it's wine dependent. If that wine tends to be a little tighter, you're going to get better aromatics in a larger bowl for sure.
Kevin, I also think, I think the principle, the idea of sparkling wine was visually first, obviously bubbles, and the flute obviously prevents you to do any swirling. And I think it was kind of just culturally become the norm that you don't swirl sparkling wine. It's a visual thing, and you will get enough aromatics from the release of the gas, and that's how it is. I don't think there's a like a code or like written in stone that you can't have it in a bigger glass. I just think it's kind of those things that you don't generally swirl sparkling wine as a culture.
Well, you'll lose the bubbles, right?
Yeah. So, but I can totally see in a big wider Pinot glass that you have more volume and space to smell and pick up on aromatics.
Nick or Michael, let's start a conversation about the production of wine. So Nick, you're doing it forced carbonation, you said?
Yeah, that's right, Kevin. So Michael alluded earlier to picking grapes on the young when they're a little bit less ripe to maintain that acidity, and that's typical of traditional method where you're going to have a second fermentation in bottle, or Charmat method where second fermentation is in tank. So with the forced carbonation, we're just taking wine that gets to typical ripeness around here, so your normal alcohol around 12%, and then we're essentially adding carbon dioxide to it, giving it bubbles, and then bottling it under pressure from there, but at levels that are similar to traditional.
What kind of PSIs do you get out of, or bars do you get out of that with the forced carbs?
So I mean, we can go up to 8 bar, but we 3.5, 3.2 bar is kind of where I've been bottling.
Yeah, I guess in contrast to that, we will be picking earlier in the 19-degree brick range, around the 10 to 10.2% alcohol. And then once that still wine is produced with a low alcohol, we'll stabilize it. And then just before filtration, and we'll add some sugar to it to prepare it for its bottling. And as it gets bottled, the sugar is going in, and we actually dose into each bottle a scoop of yeast to prepare the wine. And then we put a crown cap on it, a beer cap. So before it ever gets packaged with the cork and cage, it gets a beer cap on it where that second fermentation takes place, where that yeast eats the sugar inside, creates the carbonation inside the bottle, and then we have yeast trapped in the bottom that we need to eject before we can sell it to the customer. And that's when the cork goes in during that disgorging process. So, fermentation, depending on temperature in the winery, will take 3 months to 6 months, depending well, that pressure. Yeah. And we have a colder building. So yeah, it can take longer, but we're generally seeing it complete in 3 to 6 months. And then, like Jacques alluded to earlier, he talked about leaving it on the lees, on those dead yeast cells, because it helps create a textural difference, an aromatic difference. You start to get some of those bready, yeasty aromas that are famous with champagne production. We're obviously trying to target that in sparkling production as well. And so then we have to get those yeast out of the bottle after a year and a half to 2 years sometimes, depending. And so we'll turn the bottle upside down. The yeast will flow to the tip, and we'll freeze the tip. And then we'll take a beer opener, or they have a disgorging opener, and we'll pop the lid off and the yeast shoots out, and we have to get our thumb over it, pass it to the next person, and they will top it up with additional wine and possibly a triage, which is a combination of sugar and some wine to help balance against the acidity. That's kind of a trade secret, like how much you want to use and where you're trying to target and the wine as smoothly drinking as possible. And then the cork goes in, then the cage goes on, and then we hand label it and put the foil on by hand as well. So it's very labor intensive, but it is a ton of fun. You get covered in yeast and wine during the production process, and we wouldn't have it any other way. It's a blast. So,
well, I have to thank you on behalf of every sparkling wine consumer for going through that process. I witnessed it the first time at, and Bob, you mentioned Cygnus Wine Cellar. So Ray Brassfield at Cygnus was one of the first producers in the state of sparkling, along with Elk Run Vineyards, and who's continued their production all along. Bassignani, Bordy had one way back early on. And just seeing that process and seeing the labor that went into it, not just, the turning of the bottles and the letting it age, but, every aspect of it is wild. And so every time someone releases a sparkling wine, I've let them know that they're not charging enough because I've seen the process. Please don't charge more, but know that you should. Talk to me about, and Lauren, you're kind of the outlier here because you're putting it in cans. So in your case, tell us the production process.
Yeah, so the can method we don't do right here on site. We actually have another partner that we work with in Baltimore, Craft Pack beverage specialists, that they can it for us. And it is, I want to say, about cost $3 a can for us once you have the label, the can, the cost of the carbonation and the filling of the can. So the costs are relatively low, but that is with a small volume. Of course, the larger the volume, the more the costs go down. And we charge $9.99 a can, which sounds expensive, but it really is, it's quite affordable, actually. It's each can is 375 mils, which is literally half a bottle. So it's a little bit deceiving. People see a can and they think, okay, this is like, single serving, one glass beverage. But in reality, it's half a bottle, like I said, or 2.5 glasses. So it's by the time you double the cost of the can, it's a $20 bottle of sparkling rosé. So it's not too bad as a price point. And it, like I said, it flew off the shelf, so people seem to really, really enjoy it. But it's something that you can do canning through the mobile canning truck, so they can come right to your winery and can the product for you. So that's kind of fun. And there's definitely a big demand for this type of beverage out there. So it's a lot of the millennials are into it, and it's it's the more pinkies down approach, the less pretentious approach to wine drinking.
Hey, us old folks like it too. So
yeah, well, you don't have to carry around, corkscrews or wine glasses, and it's just super convenient. And the can chills a lot faster than the bottle, and it's just the perks are endless.
So I love that, and I love the idea of taking a can or two and throwing it in a cooler and enjoying it out on the beach or floating down a river or something like that, which is something you would not do with a bottle like this. Bob, tell me about the anatomy of this cork and cage and what it's for.
Who was that directed to?
Bob, yeah, if you wouldn't mind taking it.
When in doubt, answer, right? Okay.
Yeah.
What's going on there? So we have the cork, the cage. Depending on your cork, ours we use a plastic cork because we haven't spent the money on the machine to put that big hunk of cork into a tiny little hole. So that takes a special corking device where I can put my plastic cork in with a rubber hammer. Okay, so after we go through the disgorging and the dosage and the topping, put the plastic cap on it, drive it in. But we're still talking about a lot of pressure in here, and we still need to keep the cork in, whether you're using real cork or the synthetic plastic top. So we put the wire cage around the top, which locks around the edge of the bottle, and then you twist it 6 times. Right, that's the number of twists on the cage. Does everybody agree with me?
Is it actually 6 times?
I read that somewhere. Yeah,
Is that like the ISO standard?
Six turns
OSHA standards
for quality champagne. I'm out there. 1, 2, 3. Goes on by hand. We do everything by hand too. Squeezing these down by hand. Yeah, and by the end of the day, where's my carpal tunnel level? The labels go on. I can run through these through. We have a hand labeler, so they go on. But everything gets rubbed. These bottles get touched so many times during the process. You hate to sell it. You hate to get rid of it. You become such good friends with it. So that's what's going on with the cage. Also with natural cork, you have a metal little cap on the top, and that keeps your wires from cutting down through your cork, or your cork slicing itself out as it's being blown through the wire. So we're talking, 60 to 90 psi in these bottles of bubbly. Hence the thickness of the bottle, the deep punt. That's what we're holding in there with. Little wine grenades, as I call them.
So, Kevin, can I add to that?
Yeah, please.
Sure.
So, as Bob said, they have a very labor-intensive manual process. I'm a little more fortunate to have a semi-automated corker. Essentially has 2 settings. You either have like a regular piston into a bottle as you're putting a regular wine cork in, or the process essentially is the bottle gets raised, and as the cork goes in, the bottle is lowered. So the first time I ever did this process, I was thinking to myself, half the cork in the bottle is probably where you need to be, and then you cage it. Well, that was not right, because I struggled for about 6 months to pull corks out because it's just too deep. So what I found, for me, it's about 1/3 of the cork is in the glass, and the cage, as many people might not really realize, is actually what does the real work, is what saves us all from losing eyes. So what you really need to do when you do take it off is always keep that cage on and keep your hand on it, and you turn from the base of a sparkling bottle and release it slowly. Because if you just take foil off, take a cage off and stand there for a couple of seconds, it could just shoot off, hit you in the head or in the eye or somewhere, and that's no good. So just be mindful that the cork is normally not more than 1/3 or so in the bottle. So it's very important to keep your hand on that cage and when you're releasing it.
So
Like a safety announcement.
Yeah.
A funny story to that effect. We used to do an event at the Evergreen Museum in Baltimore called Winter Wine. It started there, and then it moved to the B&O Railroad Museum. Beautiful, beautiful spaces, both of them. But when we did our first sparkling reception in this beautiful historic Evergreen Museum, I remember myself and Jade Ostner, who was our event director at the time, we were opening sparkling wine right before customers were coming in, and we're just going, pulling the cages off or getting ready to and twisting those bottles. And the docent comes running over and grabs both of the corks that we were about to open, held onto them, and moved us over to the side. Right above us, we had these beautiful $1 million Tiffany lights, chandelier lamps that we were just opening these corks under. And I think that guy lost 10 to 15 years of his life watching us do that. So, and I think anyone who's ever toyed around with sparkling wine, either trying to bottle it or trying to open it, has had those moments of corks gone wild and just shooting everywhere. What temperature should we serve the sparkling wine?
I always feel cold. I'm a Celsius guy, but let's say about 40 to 50 Fahrenheit. I think it's like 5 to 10 degrees C.
Chilly. Yeah.
You're drinking.
Everybody good with that? As cold as possible?
Oh, too cold and
Yeah,
cold
I
is
think
too
that
cold,
that
though.
42 to 46 Fahrenheit range is probably where you want to be. They say you can put it in your fridge 1 to 2 days before consuming, so you store it at maybe your 58-degree temperature, and then just before serving in the fridge, which your fridge is around 38 to 42 depending. So take it out for a little bit, let it warm up a little, and then go to town.
And then in the awkward chance that someone does not consume the bottle, how does one store an open bottle of sparkling wine?
Very short period of time.
Yeah, the bubbles will want to come out. I know they make, and we use these at the winery sometimes. They have a special, if you've seen the vacuum vent, which is the rubber cap that goes in and you can pump it up. They also make some that actually push pressure into the bottle to help maintain an equal pressure amount so that you don't have as much gas coming out. And that's basically a cap that goes down. It has these legs that fold over the crown of the bottle and hook on right here. And then there's a pump that you can pump up with it. And that'll keep you good for 24 hours probably. But I probably wouldn't go much more than that just because you start to lose some of that textural quality that you get from the carbonation.
I've
Keep
got
it cold.
Yeah, I don't know who makes this.
Yeah,
Is that what you're talking about?
that's
Just a
exactly
little
what I'm talking about. Yep.
clips on. And this one actually I think you can pump it and it does push some air in it. But yeah, about $10 each or $8 each.
Yeah, sorry I didn't drop a name brand, but they didn't pay for this. So
The unsponsored Wine Wednesday chat. Any closing thoughts about sparkling wine? Anything you'd like to say? I'd love to hear if you've got names of yours. If they have proprietary names.
Well, we have the what we call our Giddy Up Bubbly. I don't know if you can see that with our
Let me
Nice.
intense light. There it is. Giddy Up Bubbly. That's what we do here at Robin Hill. We've always had horses on the farm here, so we went with the horse theme. So that's what we do, and we're going to continue that name whether we have the Vidal Chamberson blend or if the Cab Franc cuvee I'm working on is successful. That'll be the next Giddy Up Bubbly. So come see us at Robin Hill.
The Giddy Up Red. Anybody else have show and tell?
no catchy names. We have the sparkling Vidal Blanc. Oh, everything's reversed on camera there. And we also have the sparkling Barbera Rosé. So all of these are grown at our vineyard and picked at a separate time and all whole cluster pressed. I think we should talk about the pressing. We have to be very, very gentle with the pressing of the grapes for sparkling. We don't want to get too much extraction on those because it can affect your bubble production and your foam production. So the grapes are picked by hand in their whole cluster, and then they're put into the press, and the press actually just inflates and pushes them against the wall with very few rotations, because rotations is where you get that extraction from. So you want to keep the juice as crisp and as fresh as possible. So minimal rotation and consistent building of pressure in the press, but not too high.
At Windridge, we've got 2 wines right now that are out. Our sparkling Portrayal, made from Chardonnay, and then our sparkling Rosé, made from Chamberson. And as I mentioned earlier, these are made using forced carbonation technique. So these are more fruity, more approachable. They don't have quite the toasty brioche notes of a traditional method sparkling wine, but generally can be made at a lower price point.
Which is key.
I would say, so I don't actually have one in the house here. My wife's 8 months pregnant, so I try not to have any booze in the house so I can battle with her. So everything's
Jacques, while you're talking, I'll hold up.
Hey,
one.
there you go. He's got one.
Perfect.
He's got one. Perfect. Thanks, Kevin. Yeah, so that's we don't foil ours at all. I actually kind of like the unfoiled look. It's a little more kind of farmy, kind of farm chic, if we want to kind of really put something to it. But yeah, no, thanks. I appreciate that.
No one's drinking any.
Yeah.
I'm about to open one. I've got one. And Lauren, Lauren, we saw your can, which was wonderful.
Yeah. Actually, I wanted to share too this wine that is Vitilicato. It's a really cool wine. It's very unique. It is, again, bubbly. It has Vidal grapes and 100% estate grown, like all of our wines. We grow all of our grapes right here in Southern Maryland. And this wine's really cool because it is all natural bubbles and all natural residual sugars. So it's a sweet, bubbly wine, but no sugar added. So it's all from the grape. And the way we make this is actually during the fermentation process, we drop the temperature down to below freezing, which stops the activity of the yeast, and it preserves the natural sugar and the natural CO2 bubbles that are produced during fermentation. And it just makes this really fun, super fruity peach, tangerine flavors. And it's got this like nice spritziness to it, and people cannot get enough of it. They absolutely love this wine. So it's right behind, I don't know if actually you can't see, but one of our tanks is like an ice block, and that's our Vitilicato wine because it's 28 degrees Fahrenheit. So it's nice and chilled. So we were talking about temperatures and serving, and when I taste the wine out of that tank and it's literally 28 Fahrenheit and it is, like Nick said, there is such a thing as being too cold. Like it just has no flavor to it. So you got to let it warm up a little bit, and then it really opens up all the delicious aromatics and flavors. But it's a really fun wine, and it's kind of unique. No one else that I'm aware of is doing it. So it's something unusual.
Yeah, it's a very cool. I'm glad that you released that. So that'll be coming back, which is great news.
Yes.
Well, look, I want to thank everybody for joining us. It was great having you. And as we roll out, I just wanted to give a nod. I see that Ray Brassfield is in the chat. So Ray from the former Cygnus Wine Cellars, when we heard that he was retiring the business, myself and a few other folks ran up to buy as much sparkling wine as we can. So Ray, I got a few bottles left. This is the Royale Hampton Cuvée, which I will be enjoying tonight. But keep in mind, sparkling wines can age. So I hope you recommend that to folks. Nick, you indicated that, or was it Bob, that people are buying more than one bottle. Tell them to get a third tube and put it down because they evolve incredibly well. So with that, thanks all, and Happy New Year. And I appreciate you joining us for this chat.
Thanks, Kevin.
All right. Best to everybody. And with that, I am going to sign off, but not before reminding folks that we've got our Wine Explorer Club, which you can join if you go to marylandwine.com to check that out. You are going to see some really cool things happening in the next few weeks. We're building our next round of packs, and we'll be releasing those to the public and at a discount to our Explorer Club members in the next few weeks. You can also log on and get basically give the gift to some other folks. My birthday's coming up. If anybody is interested in sending me some wine, although I have a line on some. And with that, just a Happy New Year to everybody, and thanks for your support over the year. And Carol, who joins us just about every week, thank you and Happy New Year to you as well. With that, cheers.